Hello, Rose here. So, Christmas is over, that's that finally out the way and done. It's time to get back into making some more videos. So, this video, it's been requested once or twice by a couple of people. It's something I thought I'd look into. This is the Goth Tag. It's just a simple video idea where I've got a bunch of questions listed down here that are sort of aimed slightly towards the goth, well, this is specifically goths, hence the name, but it's aimed towards the goth YouTuber or whatever, and I'll just throw out some answers. And you know, I tend not to make videos so much about myself, but maybe this gives you a little bit of a chance to learn something about me as well. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so question number one, how long have you been goth? Now, this is one of those questions I find it difficult to answer because I'm not very good at this already, am I? But because I don't specifically class myself as goth as such, I believe that it's a very large umbrella term, and I think things have moved on slightly. I don't think everyone can sort of class themselves, most people don't class themselves as anything, but I don't think most people can put themselves in one bracket in particular. But I don't know, how long have I been different or alternative as such? Pretty much most of my life. You know, I didn't always look like this, obviously, but pretty much from about the time I was, you know, able to sort of buy my own clothes, as opposed to when you're young and your parents buy your clothes and whatever. You know, I sort of always dress, I don't know if out there is the right word, but it would be different to most other people. You know, I think it starts with, you know, you tend to just buy a lot of blacks, or you wear a lot of sort of band t-shirts or merch and things like that. So how long have I been goth? Most of my life, pretty much from the point where you begin to take charge of your own fashion choices. Okay, so question number two, how were you introduced to goth? Now, I think for most people it's probably the same answer. Let's be honest, it comes generally from music, doesn't it? I mean, it's gonna come from, I mean, God, it's gonna come from your favorite bands or your favorite artists or musicians. You know, who that is gonna be different for most people, but you know, growing up and sort of starting to discover my music in, you know, the mid 2000s onwards, you know, I mean, we sort of know who was around then. But I think one of the biggest, because when I was at school, there weren't many people. I mean, I had long hair when I was at school. Sort of my hair came down to about here. I wouldn't have really called myself goth, but I mean, I've sort of always been more into like metal music and sort of heavy stuff and things like that. And there weren't too many people at my school and sort of people that I knew at that time that were into that sort of thing. I mean, there's always a handful, there's always a couple, and there's always the one kid that sort of rocks around with their great big new rocks on, and I was, you know, I mean, I couldn't afford those then. They're cheaper than they are now because they've just gone, I mean, they've gone mainstream with their pricing, haven't they? So, you know, they see themselves as a sort of high-end fashion brand, but that's a different story. But there weren't too many people that were doing that sort of thing at the time. But there was one shop in particular in the city I live in, and it is still there, but it's slightly changed. I think it used to be called Four Leaf or something, and it's still there, but they used to sell kind of goth and emo and alternative clothes and things like that, and sort of the sort of things that you wouldn't really find in most shops. I mean, it's easy to find now. There's sort of not so many hard bricks and mortar shops around, but there's a lot of online stores and a lot of sort of the well-known goth and alternative and emo clothing brands. They're bigger and more widely known now than they were when I was younger. But this shop now, it's since turned into it's some sort of retro arcade machine bar, and I think they still do clothes and things like that, but I think they do it only online now. I'll have to check, I'll have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, I think it was probably partly an influence of, you know, sort of the bands and musicians I liked at the time, and some old ones actually. I mean, even from when I was, because I'm only 29, and from when I was growing up, I did like older music as well. You know, I liked groups like Kiss, I liked Def Leppard, you know, I liked, well, I don't know, can you call Metallica? Yeah, I suppose they are, yeah. I mean, who doesn't like Metallica? But Yeah, I was, for my age and for the time, I liked music that was older as well. That's not sort of harboring any kind of pretense that says, I don't like new music. I'm not like that. I've never been like that. But I did, it was some older groups as well. I mean, you got people like Alice Cooper and stuff like that. And I mean, the Eyes and stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, I suppose influences come from different sort of areas, didn't they? Okay, so question number 3. What gothic subgenre would you put yourself in? Now this is a tricky one because I've done a video on different kinds of sort of goths and gothic subgenres. I'll probably put a link to that down in the description, or I might even pin it in the comments. I might even do both, who knows. But I never particularly found myself fitting into any single one of these sort of pockets, as it were. I think as it's moved on from the beginnings of goth and where goth started and came from, as it's moved on, it's branched out so far in sort of many different directions. I don't really particularly feel that I fit into any one of the major, I mean, there's new ones emerging, and I talk about it in one of those videos, but I don't feel I fit into any of the major sort of groups very well. A mate of mine on YouTube, Castian Plague, incidentally, he's got a channel, it's Castian Plague, go check him out. I'll probably put a link down in the description. He came up, well, I don't know if he came up with this term or if he's heard it somewhere else, because I've never really heard it before, but he introduced me to the term of, gore goth. And after just a quick, with the way it sounds, and I tried to look it up, I haven't really heard of that before. It might be a thing where he's from, he might have started to coin the phrase himself, I don't know. But I suppose that's probably kind of maybe close to where I am. I told you I wasn't going to be very good at this. I can't answer any of these questions really straight, can I? But anyway, let's move on. So question 4, what do you believe to be the basis of the goth subculture? Now, it's tricky to answer this without sounding like one of those elitist dicks, but I mean, really, if you look at sort of where it came from and the history of goth, I mean, let's be honest, it's probably music, isn't it? I mean, I think that's where most sort of most subcultures and most sort of styles of fashion and genres of, subcultures and whatever. I think that's where they tend to stem, isn't it? You take influence, or kids at the time, teenagers at the time, take influence from what's big and what's popular and what sort of speaks to them. And I suppose, I mean, if you look back, goth sort of started to emerge around the 1980s in Britain, didn't it? And it's following on from that. I talk about this in one of those videos, but it's following on from that sort of hardcore British punk scene. And you've got bands like The Cure, like Susie and the Banshees, you've got Alien Sex Fiend, you've got all these others, I don't know, my mind's gone blank. I'm sure someone will put it down below. But you've got all these others, and this is kind of the birth of it, maybe. I mean, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It evolves from other things. So pinning a point, the basis for the beginning of something is difficult. But I mean, I'd probably say it's the music is probably the basis for it. But that's not to say that I suppose that you've got to. I mean, I don't like elitism in any sense in this sort of area. I don't think it belongs. But that's not to say that you can't be goth or whatever if you don't like The Cure, you don't like Robert Smith, you don't like Susie and the Banshees, because they're not. I don't really feel that sort of music. It's not really what I go for. But I appreciate where it came from. I appreciate the start. But it's not really my thing. It's not my jam, as it were. Do you know what I mean? But that's not to say that you can't like it, or that someone else has to like it, or that someone else can't like it. It's you do your own thing. If you want to like something and still call yourself something that could be whatever, I don't care. I'm not a big fan, but I'd probably say music is sort of the starting point for it. Okay, so question 5. What do you dislike about being goth? Well, let's be honest. I mean, I touched on it earlier. Elitism's probably one of the biggest issues about it, and I don't understand why. Because for a subculture that was born from sort of very rebellious roots, and you know, pulling yourself apart from what was everywhere as the mainstream at the time. I don't really understand why this culture of elitism has sort of found its way and crept its way in there. I mean, I suspect it's got a lot to do with things like social media and Instagram and all of that mess. But, well, I don't think that's what started it, but I think that's what made some of it worse. Because it's easier for, I think it's easier for the wrong kinds of people to become influencers, or you know, have positions of influence, or you know, where other people are sort of looking up to them. I think it's easier for the wrong kinds of people to do that when everyone's got access to the internet. But I mean, elitism, yeah, that's probably the thing I don't like most about it. I mean, yeah, you know, if you're going to go outside and you look like this, if you're going to go around and do your daily business, people are going to treat you strange. You know, it's just something to get used to. I wouldn't say that's something I particularly dislike, because for me personally, I feel as though I'm fairly lucky compared to a lot of others. It doesn't happen to me as much, and when it does, it's not as serious. I mean, you know, there's been times, I won't go into that now in this video, perhaps maybe in another video one day, but not this one. You know, I wouldn't say it's something I dislike about it, but you know, it's there. You can't ignore it. You can't get away from it. But elitism, I think that's definitely the thing I dislike the most. Okay, so question number 6. What do your parents think of it? Well, you know, I'm almost 30, so it's, you know, I do what I do. You know, people leave me alone. I'm old enough and ugly enough to make my own choices. But I suppose for the most part, you know, my family, they don't particularly like it. It's not that they don't like it, and I don't think it has in any way affects anyone in my sort of family group. I don't think it affects anyone's view of me or who I am or how they feel about me. I think for most of them, I think they just don't really understand. I think that's true of most people who aren't this way inclined. You know, I think most people just don't understand. And that's cool, that's fine. My job isn't to make anyone understand, you know. But yeah, I mean, most of my family, they just don't get it, really. You know, I mean, you don't look like this 24/7, you know. I've got work, I've got other commitments, and I mean, does any other girl out there, you know, normal goth, alternative emo, whatever, do you go and put makeup on 24 hours a day? You know, well, not 24 hours a day, but do you have it on 7 days a week everywhere you go? No. So, you know, neither do I. I've got other commitments as well. But when I do look like this, whatever this is, most people just don't understand. I think that's about the long and short of it. You know, there's no sort of approval or disapproval by anyone I've known. You know, I mean, a lot of people will say that's, you know, that's weird. What you're doing that for? Is it? Hello? It's kind of the point. Anyway, let's move on. So, question number 7. Eyebrows. Yes or no? No. No to eyebrows. I get rid of them. I have done for a long time. I don't draw them on, mainly because I can't. I've tried a couple of times, and like this, you know, I just can't do it. I've got the greatest respect for anyone out there that does it, especially on a daily basis. You're incredible. But for me, that level of perfection and that level of sort of symmetry that you try and achieve, the closest I get is a couple of little, like, very sort of, you know, 90s Marilyn Manson type vibes with it. I do a couple of little lines sometimes from time to time. But you guys that do it, I put it on the same sort of unreachable heights, the unreachable pedestal as being a professional portrait artist. You know, I just can't imagine ever being that dexterous with my hands to do that with a brush. You know, great for you lot. I personally prefer the alien look. You know, even if I haven't got all this stuff on, I prefer the weird look that it gives. You know, the strange aesthetic. It's just something I go for. So anyway, next question. Question number 8. What is your favourite band? Oh, see, this is another difficult one. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go at this because I can't really ever pick a favourite of anything. You know, I suppose it depends what day you were to ask me that question. I mean, you know, one day it might be Rammstein, one day it might be Metallica, one day it might be Marilyn Manson, one day it might be Sum 41, one day it might be, and I'll lose a lot of respect for this, but one day it might be Five Finger Death Punch, you know. One day it might be Willie Nelson, one day it might be Johnny Cash, because yeah, I do like country music, and what, fight me, bro. But you know, I can't, there's so much, my music tastes are quite broad. I don't, it's hard to specifically say what kind of genre of music I like the most. I tend to lean towards, most of the time, some of the heavier stuff. So, you know, I tend to lean towards a bit of black metal, a bit of death metal sometimes. I like old, you know, I like sort of early heavy metal. I just like all sorts. I like all sorts. Yeah, I might do, I don't know, there'd be a boring video. No one would ever want to watch a video talking about the music I like, and who cares about that? But I like all sorts. If you want to know, ask me in particular about a certain band or a certain artist or a certain song maybe, and I'll answer you then. I don't think we've got time for this in a full video. I knew I wasn't going to be very good at this, because who can pick a favourite of anything? If you pick a favourite of something, it feels to me like I mean, you know, you're your own person, whatever. You can choose whatever you want. Your favourite doesn't have to stay your favourite. But it feels to me that if I were to pick a favourite, any other time I'd listen to someone else, or do something else that's not the favourite thing, or eat something else that's not the favourite food or whatever, it almost feels like you're cheating on your favourite. And I don't know, I suppose that's a bit of a pathetic way to look at it. But anyway, moving on. Question number 9. What's your opinion on Marilyn Manson? Now, right, personally, I like Manson. I always have. I like his music. You know, I like the way he looks. I like the things he's done, and he's just. I like especially the way he was able to take a lot of covers and a lot of songs that typically you wouldn't find anywhere near that sort of genre, and sort of managed to put his artistic spin on it and his own influence on it to bring it very much into his style and his group. I respect the hell out of that. But I like his music anyway, you know. I like Manson, I always have. I've got no shame in liking Manson. I know there's been some issues in the past with people having certain opinions and whatever. I mean, you know, you can have your opinion. That's fine. I'm not telling you you have to like him. I'm not telling you, you know, you can't or whatever. But I like him, and that's that. I don't want to get political about things. So anyway, the last question, question 10. What were your babybat days like? Firstly, I know some people don't like the word or the term babybat. I know it's got some sort of negative connotations in certain circles. That's just the way these questions were written. I'm just reading it as it was written. I certainly don't use the term babybat in any derogatory sense at all. I think if you say it, people just they know what you're talking about, you know. And it's fairly good as an adjective, whatever, because it does describe a certain point, I don't know if a certain person, but a certain point in someone's life, and everyone instantly knows what you're talking about. But anyway, moving on. I wouldn't say I really had babybat days as such, because I think going from being that kid with long hair to this, it's something that happens slowly over time, you know. And I think I was perhaps a bit more of a late bloomer maybe with some of this stuff, because as I said before, there was not really many other people in, especially my friend group in particular. I mean, my friend group was quite broad. I had, you know, friends from a couple of different sort of areas, and they were, you know, very different. So I had some friends that were, you know, long haired and like heavy music like me, and some friends that were just the polar opposite to that, you know, like the popular kids who were just, you know, they like whatever's popular in the charts at that time and whatever, you know. So I wouldn't say I was particularly influenced too heavily when I was younger to sort of have that babybat stage as such. I mean, if I try and find some photos, I might put them in a video one day. You know, we might do that, we'll see. But I went from that to, so after school, I went straight into a job, and I was in this job for 11 years or so, something like that, 11, 12 years. And it was a job that very much dictated the way I could look, you know. So I had to sort of have my hair a certain way, you know. I couldn't look the way I wanted to look, you know. So since I left school for sort of 11 years or so, that's a big block. I was very restricted in the way I could look and the way I could express myself, and you know, the things I could do. I mean, yeah, sure, you got your time out of work, which is fine, but yeah, that's a different story. So anyway, I don't particularly think I had baby bat days as such, but yeah, I mean, if I find some old embarrassing pictures, I'll put them up. I'm not too proud to do that sort of thing. But anyway, that's the goth tag done. So pretty simple video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you want to know, any questions that weren't in this, put them down in the comments or hit me up on Instagram or whatever. There's ways to find me, you'll find it. You know, how about you answer the questions yourself? I'd like to hear it. You know, it's the sort of thing, it does help you get to know some of the people better. And there's already some people in this community that are, you know, really nice, really great people. So if you put some of your answers to these questions down the bottom, I'll probably list the questions in the bottom so it's easier. And, you know, put your answers in there. As always, like the video, subscribe if you want to see more of this sort of thing. Well, it's not going to be this sort of listed video again, because I can't do the same 10 questions again. Maybe in another 10 years, who knows. But if you like this sort of thing, subscribe. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay weird.